Goosebumps. Goosebumps everywhere. I just listened on my way to the studio in the car to music, which is usually very inspiring, just listening to other people's music, listening for techniques, listening for melodies, and this way kind of get hyped to actually be in the studio and make music. Today I've listened to Rufus Del Sol, I think that's how they are pronounced, Underwater. Amazing song. Go check it out. I'll link it down below. I want everyone to go and listen to it and just be inspired. And I bet you there's not a single person out there that doesn't like it, or at least appreciates the craftsmanship that went into it. But yeah, welcome to the harbor. Welcome to my studio. Today is a full music making day, and I already started preparing yesterday evening a new template for Logic, basically a template that opens up every time I started to just work faster and have like all of my routing already set in place. So I'll share with you today how I set it up, how I route my stuff, and this way be a bit faster making music and also develop your own sound a little, and of course getting a better, faster mix.
I'm breathing underwater.
I already started setting up the drum channels. So the first channel is the kick channel, and I leave it separate because I make electronic dance music. The kick is really important and I want to be able to process it differently. For example, I might compress all of the drums except the kick. I might use the kick channel to sidechain something, so it's always alone and separate. Sometimes I group it up again then with all of the other drums, but I usually start with it being a separate channel. Underneath, I've set up like a stack folder to put in all of my drum parts. So I usually have one channel for a top kick if I need like a click or maybe something with more ambient. Sometimes I put another kick into the top kick, but this is rarely happening at the moment, to be honest, because I'm using for my kick 2 by Sonic Academy. I can shape my kick in there and I can layer click 1, 2, and 3, so I can build my entire kick in there. But sometimes I want to use like a separate sample, maybe put some reverb on top. So my first one in the drum stack is top kick. Then I got clap and snare, usually 2 channels. Sometimes I need a third one to layer claps or snares. Then I got hats, usually off hi-hats on, maybe rims, like everything that is like cymbals basically. And then percussion 1 to 4. Sometimes I just add like a one shot, maybe a synth one shot, something like that, like everything that is in the broadest sense percussion. And for all of the drums, since this version, I used to use by FXpansion Guru and Geist, which is like a step sequencer, but now that Logic built it into itself, I mean, I already got here the MIDI, you got the entire step sequencer. I will try and use that for now. And my trigger program for all of the drums is Battery 4. I've changed it a little to just have like 4x4 tiles, and I can just go through my samples, drag and drop them. And if you right click onto the cells, you can direct output and output it somewhere else. Because my entire drum stack, let me open up the mixer, as you can see by that little plus and minus, is a multi-channel output. So you click on battery, let me check, native instrument, battery, and then you go down to multi-output. I use 16 stereo outs, and those are the 16 tiles. And for example, the last tile, if I click on it, it's routed to output 31 and 32. So if I need more channels for the drums, I just hit the plus and can stack up everything in here in battery, which gives me great control over like velocity, attack, sustain, and I can cut the audio, I can flip the phase, I can cut it, I can compress it. Like it's a really nice tool for all of these kind of drum adjustments. And it also gives me a better overview. I can close the stack, open the stack, I can control every individual element. That's why I'm using the multi-output. I could, for example, use on hat 3 an EQ, a different EQ on percussion, a reverb, different reverbs for everything. And I still have like the stacked group where I could, for example, do parallel compression. And if I wanted to, I could route all of that into another channel plus the kick and parallel compress that if I want to glue like all of the drums and the kick together. But that's usually something very individual I do whenever it is necessary. As a starting point, you should leave it open enough to do basically everything. So that's my drum setup. Now, yeah, give me a couple of minutes to set up everything else, because there's a lot missing.
Take it farther. I'm breathing underwater.
Whew. I'm finally all done already. The drums already explained. For the bass, similar, a stack of 3. Bass, diva, I just love that. A sub bass, I'm using Klopf, guys. It's just I'm putting a sine wave, a clean sine wave, just to layer it underneath to give it like more of that sub frequency kind of range. Then Sarum, those are usually like diva, Sarum, the ones that I use for basses. Can of course change it any second if I need something else. All into one group, just if I need to compress them all together or sum them in any kind of way. Synthesizers, the same thing, but here I have nothing pre-selected. I will select them individually depending on the song. This way I will also try out new synths and this way get inspired. So just like putting them in one group if I need to process them together and glue them together. Same for pads, a little stack right here. Pads and atmospheres, everything that is kind of sustained. I've also color coded it, like bass is red for me, synths is green, pads is yellow, and so forth. Like it's nice to have like this color coding established for you, because this way whenever you open up an old song, you just look at it and immediately red bass, blue drums, and it just speeds up in general your workflow a lot. Then we get vocals. Here just the vocal, main vocal, second main vocal. This highly depends again on whatever kind of material I get or record. I might need left, right, doubles, harmonies and everything. So vocals usually ends up being a track on its own with like 10 to 20 stacked out things. And it's nice to be able to control the reverb or volume if necessary on one channel. Sometimes I put all of the vocals into one reverb room. Usually I have like individual ones, but again, just stacking it up for the option. And the last one, probably the least important, you don't need to group it, effect sounds. Then if I hit X, we see all of our like little groups right here. And then the effects that I've set up on buses. So bus number 10, just wait, like bus number 1 to 8. Are my summing buses, and I'm thinking about ordering an external summing device so I can route those 8 there and then go through the outboard gear, and this way basically on the go stem master and get like a little bit more out of the song possibly. The next buses, bus 10 to 25, are all effects. First the reverbs. I have a snare reverb, Valhalla Vintage Verb, usually between 0.6 and 1.2 seconds, depending on the tempo of the song and the vibe I'm going for. I've also set up an EQ just to remind myself to EQ the reverb, really important, and an LFO tool if I need sidechaining on the reverb to make the reverb stop towards the next kick and glue everything even more together. The next one is for ambient. I use it usually on the hats just to give them that reverb that you can't really hear, but that still gives it a room and a dimension in the mix. And then for percussions, usually something individual depending on the percussion. The next two are for synthesizers. As you can see, I haven't set up any reverb for basses. If the bass is playing high frequencies and might need a reverb, I will probably use the same as for the synths. And if it's very low, the reverb is just mud. Don't do that. Here I got the lexicon plate and another Valhalla Vintage Verb. Then for the ambient stuff, this will highly change. If you have like something very atmospheric and weird, you might need a different reverb that does crazy things. And then the next two are for vocals. Usually I will probably have to make more reverbs for the vocals. I like to give every vocal part its individual space, and sometimes have like an octave underneath with a weird reverb, and then filter it really just to give it a little bit of ambience and glue it together. Then the next two are effect reverbs, simple reverbs with 7 seconds, the other one with 14, almost 15, just to have like long reverb tails on effect sounds. Maybe automate them at the end of an instrument to just have those smooth transitions. Then bus 20 to 25 is the more specialized effect stuff. Distortion, decapitator, really nice to color things and to crunch them up a little and make them pop in the mix. Then tape delay, just a simple one by Logic. Echo Boy for tape delay, echo, everything. And then a stereo delay for the ping pong stuff that I really love to use, and another Echo Boy in ping pong mode, and also here the mix knob to fully wet because it's on a bus. And then the last one is just a chorus set to mega wide. It's a preset. It just makes everything extremely wide and washed out. I sometimes need that on pads or more background ambient noises to like really separate them in the stereo mix. And everything else I do individually. This is a great starting point, speeds up my process. Everything is put into groups so I can control them, compress them, send them somewhere else, process them outside, route them back into the computer, and then the basic 5 channels with the effects that I use the most on buses. So that's like my starting point, probably for the next year or two. I will probably tweak it. Another little tip, if you have made a song where everything works, just open it up, delete all of the MIDI and audio, and like leave the effects on there because you've used reverbs that already work. This will also highly increase your working process. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope this inspires you to do the same. Highly, highly recommend it. It feels so much better to have a project open up every time you open up Logic where already things are set up. Don't set up too much, still leave wiggle room. But for example, like the drum routing, I would never ever do it if I would have to do it every single time with like the multi-output. You do it once, it's there, it works, and that's great. But every single time doing it again and again, you start to become lazy and don't do it anymore, and then it's harder to mix. Yeah, let me know your tweaks and tricks, how you do it. And if you're interested to see the entire thing with Ableton, if you're an Ableton user, a good friend of mine from Berlin, Dilby, he's a DJ producer, during quarantine in the studio most of the time, he started his YouTube channel a little. So if you want to check it out, I'll link it down below. And I will also give away this Logic project. This empty one, you can use it, tweak it, and this way save a little bit of time. So thanks a lot for watching. See you tomorrow again here on this channel for the daily DJ producer grind. Sign out.